Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Sin and Tonic. Today's story is that of Brian Blackwell. Back in the UK today, baby. Let's go. Sin and Tonic! Feeling spicy today because for the first time in a while, my face doesn't hurt. I feel like I've got PTSD from Tuesday's video because the harassment from the builder next door, banging away. So I need to slow myself down. I feel like I'm already rushing because I anticipate noise. I have had a nosy, there's no one there. Today's case takes us to Merseyside in the UK. This is home to Brian Blackwell, born in 1986. Me too. Brian would be, it's an unusual name for that time. Brian, that's like an older person name, I would think. I don't know any, I do know one Brian. He might be a little bit older than me. I digress already. Anyhow, he was an only child to Sydney, who was a retired accountant, and Jaqueline, who was an antiques dealer. When Brian was 2 years old, the family moved to Melling in Merseyside, which was an affluent area. And this is where they bought a nice 3-bedroom bungalow. They were described as a respectable couple, nice in nature. Nothing to write home about. There was no weird business going on or violence or alcoholism or anything like that. Very, I don't want to say normal, because what is normal, but respectable. That's how they were described. And then Brian was described as gentle, quiet, and a bit of a loner. He never made friends at school. He didn't have friends outside of school. He kept himself to himself. At school, later on, he would be given the nickname of the Brains because he did very well. He got really good A-levels, GCSEs. He was a smart cookie. He studied his A-levels at Liverpool College. And his aspiration was to become a surgeon. A surgeon. Why does that sound weird when I say it, a surgeon? His parents were very supportive of this. I'm not sure if I'm reading between the lines, but possibly a little bit of pressure there maybe to live up to, not sure. It does say they were supportive parents. There is a reason that I question the supportive parent part of this, and we will come round to that. In college, Brian had a girlfriend. She was called Amal Sabah. Both of her parents were physicians. She probably was a smart cookie as well. And she went to Liverpool College with Brian. Now, Brian had a tendency to lie. It was being written that he was a pathological liar. I find it a very strange and unusual character trait. To me, it says a lot about his self-esteem. The fact that he has to big himself up and lie about things. And I'm not just talking small lies. I am talking big lies. For example, Brian was, in real life, in reality, he was an all-right tennis player, he could play quite well. But he told his girlfriend that he was so good that he'd been signed and that he had a deal with Nike, to sponsor him, and that he was a pro. That's quite a lie. That is quite a lie, man. He said he had a place at the French Open. And what blows my mind about the lies like this, where's that going? Because he doesn't have a place at the French Open. He doesn't have a deal with Nike. So she's going to find out, isn't she? So it's a real, there's something really not right, is there? If you can make up a lie that is so huge and so, like, you're never going to be able to, what are you going to say when it comes to the French Open? Like, you know? So it's like the thought process doesn't go any further than that lie. It blows my mind, as you can tell. It gets even more unbelievable. It gets worse. Because I was thinking, people like that, perhaps it'll get near to the French Open, then he'll have an injury or something. Like, he'll be able to get out of the lie in some way, some fashion. But then he employs his girlfriend as his manager. Like, so he's not keeping her further away from the lie. He's bringing her in, but she's not aware of the lie. And then he writes her a cheque for £39,000 as payment, like as her salary. He writes her a cheque for £39,000 And she cashes the cheque. That's her payment. So she must be thinking, oh, they're 19 at the time. Sorry, forgot to mention 19. He's got 9p, 9 pence, 9 pence in his bank account, and he has written a cheque for £39,000. To me, that is absolutely. Is he so wrapped up? And I was just about to say, oh, this is dangerous. Well, it is. When I tell you the rest of this case, you'll be like, oh, wow, that went badly. But yeah, does he believe there must be a part of his brain that somehow believes all of the lie, or parts of the lie, or maybe all of, I don't know, because he's written a cheque for 30. How does he foresee a way out of that? You've got 9p in your bank, mate. Obviously, that cheque bounced because he had 9p in his bank account. I can't get over it. So he, in desperation, he goes to the bank and he's got like a savings account. In that savings account is about £9,000, and that is for his tuition and stuff for university that his parents are saving for him. And he gives them a bit of a story and says, a sob story, and says that his dad has died and he needs the money, but all of this, and they allow him to withdraw £9,000. He says, Dad's died, I need to buy a car, please let me get my money out. And then he buys his girlfriend a car with that money. Ford KA. They were all the rage. I would have loved a Ford KA. So I was just thinking, she's expecting a cheque for £39,000 as her wages, and he rocks up and goes, oh, bought you a car, look at me, look, bought you a car. I'm thinking from an adult brain, I would be like, yeah, great, that's not worth £39,000, where's my cheque, mate? Like, if I'm going to be your manager, I want paying. But as a 19-year-old young woman, imagine just getting a car. Like, whoa, that's cool. So, and perhaps she doesn't know how much cars are worth. I don't think I would have known that at that age, especially if it was like a new car that I'd just been given. Brian's parents find out about this situation and they are very angry. They request that Amal gives the car back. And there is a very heated argument, and Brian is very upset with his parents, and he says, you can't ask her to do that because then I will look like an idiot. Maybe you should have thought through your actions. But like we've said before, not fully developed until you're like 25. They settle upon she's allowed to keep the car, but she then has to pay the money back for the car. She has to pay them for it. I mean, it's their money. So this is all completely legit. Like, they're being very reasonable here. He's been a so-and-so. You can't do that. And he kicks off again and just says, well, that will be really insulting to me. Like, I've given her the car, and little did they probably know that about this lie. I don't know if they knew about that lie, actually, about the tennis thing. But he's trying to this is the trouble with lying. If you lie, you have to remember that lie, you have to uphold that lie, you have to be careful who have you said that to, like, who knows what, where, who, how. I don't like the lying. I love Christmas, but I do find it difficult when you have to hide presents and you can't say, or birthdays, when people have a surprise, but I'm like, is it a surprise? I just don't like any of that. It's so much pressure. It's too much pressure. Brian didn't learn any lessons from this. He just became more devious, really, and deceitful. So his girlfriend still believed the lie about the tennis thing, so he had to uphold the lie. So then he applied for credit cards, loans, all of this. I mean, he's 19, he's a student. I do believe that many of those applications would have been denied. You don't just get given money. That is kind of not true. Sometimes you do. But his parents found out about this and they went to the bank manager and they said, he is out of control. Please do not let him get a loan or bank cards or anything, because he's got no way of paying it back. Again, it's hard to fathom his brain. And then he just goes, he keeps on going. What do you do with kids like this? I don't know. So on the 24th of July 2004, he steals his dad's credit card and he books flights for him and his girlfriend from Manchester to New York. She believes that he's this tennis pro. She believes that she's becoming his manager. Don't know what on earth she thought about the whole car hoo-ha. She must have had an inkling that he was not telling the truth. If his parents are like, well, she can't keep that car, it's our money. How did he talk his way out of that one? I don't know. But for now, she just is fully believing his lies. And like I said, she's very young. He books plane tickets. He books a holiday to New York on his dad's credit card. Unbelievable. And also, your dad is going to find out. Again, I find this really tricky to understand. The following day, 25th of July, 2004, Brian is at home. He's hanging pictures in his room. So he's got a hammer and he's hammering, you know, how you put a picture up. And his parents have been out for dinner and they return home and an argument quickly ensues. Now, they're all in the lounge having a drink, I believe. Did his dad find out about the credit card thing? I'm really not sure because no one knows other than Brian, sadly. So on this day, Jacqueline is his mother is 61, his father is Sydney is 72. And this would become the end of their story. During this argument, Brian picks up the hammer that he's been using to put pictures up in his bedroom and he begins beating his father with the hammer. His mum is in the kitchen. She has got a knife in her hand. I think she was cutting something up. They had been out for dinner, but she was cutting something in the kitchen. She comes in, maybe a lemon for a G&T, I'm not sure. She comes in. She obviously has heard this commotion. She's heard him beating his father. Can you imagine, like, even 1 or 2 blows with a hammer? He's 19. He's a strong 19-year-old lad. His dad's 72. Oh, just the pain of being hit with a hammer. She rushes in and she's got this carving knife in her hand, big knife. She tries to stop Brian from beating his dad. She's probably in a very desperate state. And he wrestles this knife from his mother and then he stabs his own mum 30 times, mainly in the chest. His mum dies in front of him. And then he turns his attention. He must have caused some damage to his dad at this point because his dad doesn't come to rescue the mum. 30 stab wounds, that would have taken an amount of time. So his dad must have been in quite a bad way because he couldn't come to the aid of his wife. But he was not yet dead, just incapacitated. Brian then turns his attention back to his father and while holding his hand and apologising, he then stabs his father to death. Like I said, what a dangerous mind. And I would like to say this is unbelievable, but it's not because everything we've heard so far, like this is not unbelievable. But then he goes on that holiday with his girlfriend. He leaves his house, exactly how it is, horrific crime scene. There's no clearing up, no disposing of the bodies or leaves it all there. Just leaves everything as it is. And then he's off. He goes on holiday like nothing has happened. While they're on holiday, he's using his dad's credit card, his deceased father's card. It's just salt in the wound. They're dining on champagne and truffles. They stay in the Plaza Hotel for 3 nights. I think he spent about £30,000 on his dad's credit card. And you wouldn't have known what had happened. He wasn't worried or troubled or different. He was absolutely normal. They returned to England on the 12th of August 2004. His parents still at home. Now, his parents had a holiday home and it wasn't unusual for them to go off and go on holiday, especially at this sort of time of year. So all of the neighbours and people that knew them, it wasn't unusual. They weren't missed in that time. Everyone assumed that they'd gone to their holiday home. He then stayed with his girlfriend and said exactly that his parents were still on holiday in Mallorca and could he stay with them until they came home? And that was like, oh, sure, no worries. During that time, he got his A-level results and they were really good. They were A grades for mathematics, science, biology, chemistry and Spanish. He also got accepted into Nottingham University to study medicine. So all of this has happened while his parents are at home, dead in their house. And then on the 5th of September, a neighbour went to go and pop round and see his parents. When they got near the house, near the front door, they noticed a very horrible, horrible smell. And they must have known something was very wrong, and they called the police. Oh, I can't imagine. How long's that been then? So the 25th of July, you're watching me discover that in real time, to the 5th of September. Man, that is going to be ripe. They found the Blackwell's bodies very, very injured, in a state of decomposition. We're going to go with that word. Decomposition, is that the word? Oh my gosh. Words are eluding me today. And then, as they do every day, Sophie, Sydney, Mr. Blackwell, he was found in the armchair, still holding his glasses, and Jaqueline Blackwell, the mum, she was found face down in the bathroom. So she'd been dragged there. I don't know what that was about. Was there maybe some effort to clean up the crime scene and then he couldn't be bothered and left? Not sure. As is the case with murder, people closest to the victim are brought in for questioning. That is the statistic. You're most likely to be murdered by somebody that you are close to, that you know. And he was arrested on the 8th of September. And when he was taken in for interview, he broke down and he confessed. He sobbed and he said it was a split-second thing. I didn't even realise what I was doing. It's not a split-second thing. The moment, if you lost your mind and you lost your temper and you hit your dad and you were out of control and you were hitting your dad with a hammer, the minute your mum walks in and shouts at you to stop and that should be enough to, or even you've hit him once and you just, that is a split-second thing. Oh, I lost a bit of control. But to continue through all of those stages and all of those steps, there was a lot of time for you to stop that attack. So give it a rest. His trial would be 9 months later, in June 2005. And this is why I find this case quite interesting, because 5 psychiatrists in that time, people worked with him and evaluated him, and they all agreed that he had narcissistic personality disorder. Now, this is really interesting because I think it's only 1% of the population are ever diagnosed with that, but it's tricky because there's probably so many more people that do have NPD, let's call it, because my words are not working. So the nature of narcissism is that a person with narcissism would not believe there's anything wrong with them at all. And this is why I find it interesting, because now when we think about his behaviour, he can do no wrong. He's always right. He will never take responsibility or accountability for anything. And then you've got to think that this person, the way that he was acting and making up these lies, and they often believe their stories and they're grandiose and there's nuances to narcissism, or not NPD. I find it really fascinating. And it makes more sense as to why he was always lying. And I read somewhere that a narcissist they only remember 85% of what has really happened in real life. No, they only remember 15%. I'm sorry. 85% of what happens in reality goes out of their mind. Isn't that bizarre? Because they live with a false self, they've had to create a false self. And normally this comes, and this is why I questioned the supportive parent thing. We never know what goes on behind closed doors. They could have been very respectable parents on the outside, but perhaps they weren't emotionally supportive. They could have been emotionally neglectful. And if you don't build a sense of self as a child, which is mirrored to you from your parents, then that can be how narcissism develops. But we don't know. But he was diagnosed with NPD. Narcissists are normally incredibly selfish. They need to be praised by everybody, treated like royalty, and they have a massive sense of entitlement. So it would not have mattered to him one bit whether his parents could afford the flights or whether they told him off about booking a holiday. He wouldn't care. He just wants what he wants. It was agreed, though, that there was nothing to suggest that the murder of his parents was premeditated. He had the hammer, he was putting pictures up, and he flew off the handle. The charge was dropped from murder to manslaughter, with diminished responsibility, and I find that very interesting. Mainly it was because of his diagnosis, so because it's a mental health, it's a personality disorder. So that to me says that there's an element of him not being able to, not having full control. Oh, I find it terrifying, I really do, I do. On the 29th of June 2005, Brian was found, he pleaded guilty to manslaughter with diminished responsibility, and he was given life sentence with a minimum of 12 years. And the judge said that he didn't believe that Brian would ever be able to be fit for release. However, in 2016, Brian was released from prison. He's now a free man. Something that I find interesting with that is that if somebody is diagnosed with NPD, they then have knowledge about themselves. It's a bit like any diagnosis. Until you know, you don't know, obviously. And I just hope that as part of his release and part of his time in prison, and he was in a young offenders institute, I believe, hopefully they worked with him on therapy, because now he has that gift of awareness if he chooses to take it. I've never heard of anyone being healed or cured. I don't think you can be, but like everything else, you can put things in place to protect yourself and others. I hope that is the case. That is all I have for you on today's case. Hope you've all had a lovely week. I am feeling really happy that my face is okay today. It's quite a big old gap. Didn't really appreciate how big a molar is until you've had one ripped out of your face. It feels nice to be able to put that as a thing that has, like, it's in the past. It's in the past. And to be honest, other than that issue, I do have a child off sick. Everyone just gets so sick at this time of year. So many germs. You just send them to school to just get a germ and then come home and then share it and then get them sent back again and then they get another thing and share it again. Then you meet up with friends that go to different schools and then they have a different germ and then that comes. Yeah, that's what happens in the winter here. It's just grim. For now, I feel all right. So I'm going to, what's that word? Have gratitude for my health while I have it, because I'm probably going to come down with this. Fill me in. Let me know what you've been up to. Anything exciting, please tell me. I'm going to love you and leave you. Have a beautiful weekend. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Sin and Tonic. Hope you join me next week for a true crime story in a mug or a jug or a vase of gin. I will see you on Tuesday. Bye.